What is up, DBS community? This is Marcus, Danny, and Shane with the GnG Elite DBS podcast. Today we're going to be going over the decks from Philly and how we think this might impact Orlando. We're going to start with the top 16 and work our way all the way up to first place. And the first list we have on the table is Andrew Duvall playing Blue Yellow Janemba.
Woo! Yeah, blue yellow. Littlest package of blue yellow ever, but it's blue yellow.
I don't know if I'd even say the littlest, to be honest, because this man had 4 Frost Deadly Poison in his deck, and that's a pretty big commitment.
He played the blue yellow for the purpose of playing Frost Deadly Poison. I'd be interested to know if he sided in the Champas a lot, because I feel like Champa's a lot better. Personal opinion.
I see he was playing more Gohans in the main deck over the Champas, and I think that's like just a way to help against the aggro decks because it just takes them off tempo and keeps the thing out of play rather than Champa. Sure, Champa draws you a card, which is great, but just like tapping the guy doesn't answer it, you know?
Yeah, I do like the Tapion in the side. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he had 2 Tapion and 3 Source of Power.
Yeah, that's bad, but whatever. But
excuse me, what?
I said I think it's bad, but
Really? Why do you think Source of Power is bad?
I think it's bad in Janemba because you have to tap 3.
Well, right, but the matchups where he's bringing it in, he's trying to be super aggressive so he doesn't die to a combo. So
I like Tapion better in that situation just because it guarantees that you're gonna bounce something, right?
I think both are probably fine, but the weird thing was the double Dende in the main deck and only 3 D magic.
He didn't give a crap. He was not about that life. He only ran D magics too. Well, he ran 1 all too easy and 1 Mafuba.
So like he had to cut back on his negate count a little bit to play the Mafuba and the all too easy. I think the Mafubo is a weird main deck choice, but I guess it's not too bad. But with his large black package and trying to be essentially a 2-color deck, he had to make cuts somewhere, it looks like. Like he's not playing Reality Bender at all.
He's not playing Unbreakable except in the side. Reality Bender's in his side. But,
or what I meant is in the main deck, my bad.
Yeah, so it's an interesting list. I'm glad that it went far. But I don't think it's the most optimal build, but I'm glad the dude did well with it. I'm super happy to see it.
For sure.
So, good job, Andrew.
I'm a big fan of Double Chump.
Yeah. I think Andrew did a great job with this list, but we'll move on to the next one. The next list was Eric Hill in top 16. He played Toa, and his list, it's probably pretty standard in most Toa lists. He went with the Toki engine for Dende's, Kami's, stuff like that. His list notably has 2 Forced Destruction Mira in his deck, and 2 Supreme Kai of Time Time's Choice as his like card advantage Kai of choice. And I think that's just the just wanting to find regulators as soon as possible, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like the Forced Destruction. That's pretty cool. So good job on that, Eric. I think this list is pretty solid. There's not too much I would change. Honestly, playing Toa just kind of feels like the better the player you are, the much further you're going to be able to push your Toa matchups. So
I think
we can
go ahead.
And we can definitely see that with a lot of the more renowned players. Typically take Toa and they typically do very well with it. So
yeah, I think the skillless version, I think it's just a little bit stronger because it like maintains its board via the skillless engine. A little bit easier, right? So you're not relying on like regulator plus playing a Mira to have a board. You can like dimension support to make 2 attacks. It makes you able to be a little bit more aggressive in the matchups where you need that kind of engine.
Agreed.
So it's just a little bit more
that he has
flexible.
Forced Ejection in the sideboard for Anthony.
Yep. So I think this list overall looks really sweet.
More board.
Yeah, agreed.
And he went with good old Horrors and TNs in the sideboard, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with stuff like that. Again, it's there's some very techy stuff like the Time's Choice Supreme Kai of Time is interesting in here.
The Forced Destructions, but otherwise, like, seems pretty solid.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a good list. So again, good job, man.
The next list we were going to look at was Brandon Lipschutz playing Skillless, Mono Yellow.
Yeah. So all three of us know about some Skillless. So.
Yep. So he had a main deck Zarbon, which is kind of weird when we're not expecting as much Victory Strike. Like, it's not bad. The Goku and Android 18 stuff is pretty neat. You know, you can, like, attack with an Android 8 or with a Goku to, like, bait someone into a bad attack, and then Zarbon to kill the thing. You know, make him feel safe. There's 2 Champa. Instead of the 3rd champ, he's playing a Kraken Space Time, which I don't think is bad. It's can be a little awkward, maybe. I think the 3 one-of Overwhelms is a little weird, and only 2 Training Buddy Krillin doesn't seem correct. And 5 4-star balls instead of any yellow 1-drop searchers is kind of weird.
He's also not playing a lot of 2-drops, though.
Right, but he doesn't have, like, his yellow count is
I
there,
guess
right?
He is playing 7, my bad. I didn't see the
Right.
Super.
But if we look at, like, the cards he doesn't mind pitching, he has just the vanillas, whereas, like, he never wants to pitch the Source of Power, the Zarbon, Mutaido, or Fearless Assault Krillin to his Flying Nimbuses. Whereas, like, something like Sorbet would fit that slot really well.
So I think y'all are looking at this deck wrong.
I haven't.
Like, I think we're trying to look at it as, like, Skillless, the way we piloted Skillless the last format. The way it's been piloted since it came out. I think he's literally just trying to play the Skillless engine while killing people with his leader.
Like, that's probably fine. I mean, he did pretty well with it. It's a pretty cool list.
I like
I think that's why he has 2 Champa and a Kraken Space Time.
I do like the Kraken Space Time for, like, because a lot of the times when you're playing Skillless, they don't really negate your leader. They'll save their combos for your leader.
Or the third, and try to, like, negate the 30Ks.
Yeah, so I like the Kraken Space Time. That way, you know, you get them to 2. They're always going to be fearing the 30K that you're going to have on board with the Champa, but they're never going to be expecting, like, the 1-0 Kraken Space Time. So I think that is an awesome choice. I agree with Shane that, you know, if you go in this kind of the traditional list thinking you're probably going to be wrong, I do think that Training Buddy Krillin at 2 is also not right, because Training Buddy just feels really good. I'd be interested to know how he felt about Training Buddy.
I actually think Training Buddy's just kind of bad right now.
It's very bad into the red and green Arrival / Counterplay decks.
Like, it gets hit by You Are Wide Open, it gets hit by Vegeta the Cruel, it gets hit by Denial of Hope, it even gets hit by Preemptive Strike.
I mean, everything in this game gets hit by stuff now.
Right.
Well, right.
It's just...
And that's why you gotta not play those cards.
You gotta play around him as best you can. Like, being able to play a Goku on 1 and then just spamming the Goku's ability seems pretty good, you know? Yep. But, like, trying to commit 2 energy to a Training Buddy just for it to, like, not even kill anything, plus put a 20k into play that immediately dies and you lose a card from your hand or something. Like, I can see what Shane's saying.
Right, like, we've already seen Janemba kind of steer away from Childish Heart a little bit. Not completely, but a little bit, for those reasons.
I personally would... The only thing I would change, really, is, like, take the cheeky Zarbon, put it in the sideboard, and take the Dimension Support and turn it into, like, a Banisher Fu or something. Not Dark Banisher, but, like, the 5-drop. And maybe add another Power Burst. I know he's got the 4 Nimbus, but Power Burst not costing energy is super relevant. But otherwise, I like the list.
It is, well. It's a good list, so good job, Brandon.
Yeah. Our next list is from Russell Stelzer.
And
he's playing Toa.
It doesn't seem to be anything spicy here. Yep. It just seems run of them.
Yeah, it's just like a very run-of-the-mill Toa deck with a Toki engine for toolboxing, main deck Dimension Leaper. 4 Banisher Fu is a little odd. Like, it's one of the best overwhelms you can play for its stats, but 4 of it is still kind of a little weird. And it's kind of weird to not see any 8-drop Fu, the Anniversary Box one. But, I mean, it looks like Toa.
Yeah, it's again, we get on that subject of, you know, the better the pilot you are, the better you're going to be able to win with this deck. Right. And I know that's true about, like, every deck, but Toa, it feels especially true.
And Russell is a very solid player.
Yeah, again, we see this. You know, you see another top name player who's good at the game, and they take Toa, and they're gonna smash with it. They're gonna get what they're trying to get out of it. and it's pretty cool to see.
Our next deck is one of Danny's favorites. This is Shenron Height of Mastery. I mean,
next deck.
There's nothing particularly spicy about this deck other than on a one of the Wish Granter, which seems a little odd, but I guess it's good in combination with Height of Mastery if he can't do the thing. Because does it get triple strike or triple attack?
Triple strike.
Triple strike. So I guess you can just like slap it on a Krillin maybe, plus leader skill, and all of a sudden this Krillin is going in for massive amounts of damage. Like that's another win condition potentially.
Yeah, possibly. Again, Kyle, like, good job, dude, with the deck. I know it takes you do have to pilot it well, but dear Lord, is this deck brain dead?
Then we have one of the spiciest decks to make top cut, which is Yovan Mavaro. We're playing Yamcha, which was
the coolness.
I mean, it's the leader choice makes a lot of sense. He's just trying to make Kaioken cost 5 instead of 7. And he's playing Arrival and Vegeta the Cruel and Denial of Hope. He's just playing a passive strategy that wants to answer everything the opponent plays, and then play Kaioken for advantage, and scramble people occasionally.
This is definitely one of those decks that we keep seeing. I know we saw it at our preliminaries with our friend RJ playing a red leader with more counter plays than you could ever hope to fight through. It comes down to one of those decks again, and then he's, like we said, doing the turn 5 Kaioken. But until then, he's just kind of playing a Vegeta the Cruel's Denial of Hopes and negating stuff. And I mean, it works. It's a solid strategy.
What do you think?
This is a deck that I think a lot of people should be considering for Orlando, and it's one of my backup plans besides just.
One thing I thought was kind of weird was Hidden Awakening Kale. I understand it's actually pretty solid when you play like a Vegeta the Cruel or a Mach Speed to like kill something, and then you can Kale to clean up the board even further on the following turn. But I just don't know if it's ever correct to, like, I don't know. Like, obviously you can't say it's never correct to have them in your deck when they're so easily hindered by counterplays. Like Hit and Kale both are 4-costed 20Ks that are hit by literally every counterplay in the game. And like, sure, they'll get their effects off, but if you're spending your whole turn doing that, it feels really bad. But she's a solid green card, and when she doesn't get stopped, is very good.
I think a real relevant thing here is that there's very few like good green cards.
Right, exactly, and that's what I was thinking too. She's a solid green card. It gives you green cards to combo with for Arrival, and green cards to have in your energy if you don't have like enough double color energies for your scramble or whatever.
Right, yep. What other green cards are there? There's like that techie rare, or what is it, Energy Barrage Frieza that's like
There's the 3-drop Goku that gains 15,000 in crit when you play it by taking up to 2 life, so it's a Self-Awakener. I mean, there's cards, but Kale is a very solid option, so I don't think that's bad.
So, I think one thing I like about this deck, and why I think a lot of people should be, playing with it, like, what is something we've learned as every set has come out lately involving Secret?
Play the Secret Rare.
If it's broken, abuse it. And what is Scramble?
Very, very broken.
A
very unfair card. But yeah, otherwise...
Like, it is very hard for decks to win when you scramble them from 4 to 2 on a double strike attack.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the biggest things that Kale also adds to this deck is being a Saiyan for Trunks Bridge to the Future. So it's a green card that you can pick up off of Trunks.
Yep.
Yeah, like, it seems sweet. Good job, man. And our next deck in line is...
if I remember correctly, he's actually...
Hey, Shane, your mic
cutting out.
Pat of Meals. And Pat played almost the same deck, except what about now?
It's a little bit better. It's slightly better. Just give it a second.
Alright.
What about now?
You just have a bad connection. Go ahead and disconnect, reconnect, and me and Danny will talk about this deck for a little bit. So here's a Blue Yellow E6. Looks pretty standard. There's a 1 of Meteoric Kefla, 2 Champ of the Tricksters in the main deck, 2 Time Magic in the main deck instead of like Nimbus or anything like that. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, and I like the Planet Vegeta and the Planet Sadala. This deck is really strong. It's one of those decks that if you don't know what you're doing into it, chances are you're just going to lose.
Right.
At least the game one, and then hopefully you can figure it out game two. This deck also takes a really good pilot. Like, I mean, I don't think you have to be nearly the kind of pilot that you do with Toa to push it. But this deck, if you could sequence incorrectly and probably just screw yourself. Also, I don't know that it's as good as the price tag warrants it for.
Yeah.
It's a good deck, don't get me wrong, but these cards should not be that expensive.
One of the big things is the Kale and Caulifla both only have one single printing in the set. There's no SPRs, no signed versions, nothing like that. And everything else in the set is relatively cheap, so something will retain a little bit of value, and it just happens to be these.
Yeah. I just don't know.
You know what I find funny? That, like, this is one of the first sets we've seen, besides set 6, where something...
Still can't hear you.
But yeah, this deck is. I like this deck a lot. The only thing that like I'm not the biggest fan of is I think maybe Nimbus is in the main board possibly, but I like it. It's a good deck. The deck is a lot of fun to play. If you've never played it before, definitely give it a shot. But again, we're looking at it on DBS decks, and it says the average price is $217. There's other decks you could pick up, and I think this is this the only Kaba deck that was in? I think
so, yes.
Yeah, and there was a decent amount of them too. So
yeah, that was Henry Hernandez.
Can you
hear good job, Henry. Yes. So onto the.
So what's relevant on what you just said is not only was it popular with the event, it was the second most played deck. I'm pretty sure.
Next to Toa, yeah, and it was there was only one of it that made top cut.
Yeah, and there was like I think it was like 12, 13, 14 of them. So it had a very underwhelming showing.
Yeah, and top cut.
Our next deck was from Zach Lowe. It's a deck we're already familiar with from last format. It's another Victory Strike deck. Trying to play this kind of strategy seems a little, I don't know, a little ballsy when you only have one Bloodlust to back up your plays and no Bad Ring to force your Victory Strike through. And this list in particular isn't geared to have an aggressive front if that's what you need to do. There's no Mira, no Champa, no 2-drop swap Goku. I'm not a big fan of this list, but I mean, he did a good job. It's just not one I would play in this meta.
Yeah, it's pretty... Man, you just lose to everything with this list now.
Not necessarily.
Chomp with the Trickster's a card. I mean, and I know you still can have your leader untapped, but you have Chomp with the Trickster. You have Denial of Hope.
So, in a field full of Toa, how do you not win?
What?
I mean,
in a field
Toa can awaken though without having to push anything, and that's Toa's big strength.
She can't take off Victory Strike.
Yeah, she can't get any skills.
I didn't say that. I just said that she could take away. She could awaken, whereas that's a big problem that we're running into.
But my question is, how do you not win?
No, I mean, I could see this deck being good into Toa, but I think it's just like one of those things where there's so many other decks in the meta that it's so risky to try to play this deck. If you play against a bunch of Toa, that's great, because Toa probably can't keep up with the card advantage this particular list will generate, and doesn't have the tools to keep Victory Strike from killing them.
So I think the reason this deck did well is it was... Now, I don't know if it was... I don't want to say it was accidental and assume that. It could have been intentional. It just felt like a good meta call that paid off.
I mean, it could... Yeah, for sure. And if I'd be interested to know what Zach's matchups were. Because if he played into a lot of Toa, then I'm pretty sure that felt good. And if he didn't, I'd love to know what he played into. Because the deck is... Like, don't get me wrong. As much as I hate the deck, it's really strong. And it's really consistent. And it does do better the better you are. That's why people consistently can top with it.
Was Henry playing Chomp of the Trickster in his Kaba deck?
Yes. Yes, he was playing 2.
You also play Frost Poison in that...
In the sideboard.
Yeah, so this deck does not have a good...
Because he beats all the other combo decks as long as he wins the die roll. He beats Toa. He probably just had a lot of fortunate matches.
Yeah, I want to look up Frost Deadly Poison real quick.
It negates the skills and makes it come into play tapped.
Alright, so you can't negate Victory Strike?
No.
It would just come into play tapped. So.
Yeah, but then they just untap it.
And then you just Broly untap it.
That's true.
Wait,
Yeah.
yeah, Champa doesn't do anything either. You just Broly untap it.
But you know, when
You
you're
usually
playing in
won't
that
have
later, you can tap people out easily.
Well, you usually won't have the energy to tap down Victory Strike because they'll have played Hide and Mastery first. That's kind of the problem. So you have to champ the Trickster on the Hide and Mastery, and then they untap it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just like one of those things where this deck's still kind of decent.
Like if
you
it's
have to be like ready.
Right. If it slips through the cracks, it'll do really well. But if people are prepared for it, you won't see it on the top cut. But otherwise, really good job from that was Zach Lowe.
Yep. So now we move on to Nick
Brady. And
playing a more traditional kind of Janemba, you know.
He's been playing this deck since Nationals. I played him at Nationals, and he was playing this deck.
He's actually a friend of Jordan Markles. I think he's a local or something.
Yep. Super traditional list, though. I mean, he's got a small Toki engine with 2 blockers, 2 Kami, 2 Year Wide Open, only 2 Reality Bender, 1 God Strike Still, and 2 Boo the Mischievous instead of Striving or Kai. But 4 Childish Heart, 4 Psyche Demon. He's just turtling
hard
up.
Mill.
He's like in turtle mode, plus like being able to switch to mill. It feels like he's just halfway in between, like the traditional list or the list that Daehan was making popular with the black engine.
Yeah, I like the Year Wide Opens a lot in this. He's going mono blue. Mono blue does have a pretty good counterplay, as we're starting to see more and more of in the Year Wide Open. So he can play more conservatively. Yeah, so he can play more conservatively. You know, once he gets to turn 4 and 5, he can just Agent of Destruction, leave up 2, Year Wide Open, and then it's good game. Good game. So I like this list. I actually am going to be testing mono blue for a little bit. Well, I just want to see before Orlando and make sure that I'm on the correct path.
You're not.
He's got 2 Goten in the sideboard, which we've discussed is a good tool to fight the Toa decks, and it's probably one of the reasons why he was able to make top 16 in the field of Toa, if I had to make a guess. Aside from just like playing well, that's a very good tool for that matchup.
He went 1-1 against Toa.
Yep. So I mean that's something when it's not a great matchup, you know.
Correct. Yep. I honestly think the matchup's not as bad as people make it out to be.
Well, people always like to hyperbole, so.
I think it's about 50-50.
If you look on the forums, people talk about how like it just auto beats Janemba, and that's very far from it.
Janemba's another deck though that very much rewards good play, and so you can take something like that. You can take from that what you will about the players.
Let's talk about percentages really quickly, right? So every single leader had such a high play percentage, except for Janemba. Janemba had 3 people play it, and 2 of them got top cut, and it was like that at Dallas. When I played Janemba, not many people were on Janemba, and the majority of us topped. This deck, time and time again, keeps showing that if you can pilot it, and most people who know what they're doing with it are the ones that take it. They know how to beat everything. They know what they're playing.
Hot take for a moment.
Allow me to finish my sentence for a moment. Nah, go ahead. You're fine.
So, look, man, I've learned I don't get in with y'all unless I butt my way in.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so the reason you see things like that are pretty simple. So you have majority of your player base who's like, you know, all against Janemba because they just don't want that kind of deck to be good, right? And then when you have majority of your like good players not playing it, the percentage, like the representation is almost always low. Because you have everyone shitting on the deck for not being good because they don't want it to be good, and then the good players, just for whatever reason, don't seem to play Janemba outside of like Daehan and Butters.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. It's just this deck is really good. There's 2 builds that I'm specifically looking at, and Nick hit pretty close to the second build. There's a few changes. Mr. Boo the Mischievous isn't in mine.
I'm actually considering playing Mr. Boo in mine instead of the Supreme Cap.
So I like it.
Danny, a note for this list for you. There is no unyielding.
Yo. Hi, Nick. Well, I think you made a mistake.
No, I'm actually probably going to cut unyielding myself.
That's fine.
I think otherwise,
deck functions now where you don't really want to play childish hard because it gets fucked by counter plays. You don't really.
Regardless, Nick did a great job. We'll move on to our next deck, which
is... this is the Janemba debate hour. Go away.
Joseph Ramos Calderon playing Toa again. Looks like the other Toa list for the most part. Some numbers tweaked here or there. It's got the black engine. He's got dimensional support and vanillas in the sideboard, which I think is a waste of sideboard space.
The black engine.
When I say black engine, I specifically reference Toki engine. Unintentionally, that's just what I mean. So yeah, dimension supports and trunkses in the sideboard seems like a waste, kind of. Like, I'd rather just see that in the main deck rather than like trying to bring in 5 cards plus whatever else you need against whatever deck he thought he would need that for.
Yeah.
He has a single 4-star ball on the sideboard.
Yep.
What?
Yeah. There's no Kid Gokus. It's probably just a meme. Probably something among his friends were like, hey, you have the skillless cards, where's your 4-star ball? And he put one in the sideboard or something, I don't know.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, I mean, Stoa, good job, man. It's a good deck to play. Next we have Miguel playing Oob. This was the Oob deck, the other spicy deck that topped.
Alright, go on your tangent about this, buddy, because I know you like it.
No, it's just Oob, Oob Ultra Instinct. I mean, it can put a lot of pressure into play and then finish with Ultra Instinct. It seems like a lot of players aren't wanting to play as many negates, which is kind of weird. Like, you'll see some decks, like the red deck, the Yamcha one, played 6 negates, and but you'll see like other decks cutting down to like 4, 4 minimum, and it just seems weird. Whereas negates are super good against this deck, but I mean, this is the kind of deck that can catch someone off guard, I think.
Yeah, I like it. This deck is really fun to play. Not that fun to play into, but it's really fun to play. Just being able to put so much pressure and just have a good time, honestly. I bet Miguel had a blast playing this deck.
Oh yeah, this deck's super fun.
Sweating, having a lot of fun.
The amount of balls that it takes to play a win condition that just gets shut down by a negate, like, bravo. I could never do it.
One thing I realized, though, if you think about it, in the meta outside of Toa, there isn't a lot of good removal for big guys. So this is the kind of thing where, like, if you can apply pressure early and then land it Ultra Instinct and just attack with it, even if they negate, if they can't answer it, like, what are you going to do, right? Cry. Or what are they going to do?
Cry.
Right. So, like, I don't think it's that bad, but if people start to shift to more good main deck removal, like more Banish or Foos or whatever, then it feels a lot worse.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, I think he did a great job. The deck looks sweet.
Oh, for sure. Now we get into another really cool deck that I like to see. And I know a friend of ours who's looking at a deck like this. Will definitely be happy to see it. And it's
Wait, who's looking at this deck?
And
so yeah,
looking at this deck.
AOD, Dende AOD. It's only a viable deck now because they printed the 2-drop Boo that you can search off of Assemble Squad, and then evolve off of that into Awakening Evil Majin Buu. So it does the same thing the previous format version of this deck did. I don't think it's really any different other than like making it harder to pull off the combo because you can't use the same Boo from your drop using Child's Wishes to reassemble if you get cleaned up. This deck is kind of ballsy because it gets hurt a lot by cards like Denial of Hope. You just go into the secret rare, try to play all your cards, and then they denial them, and you don't get as much, like, you can rebuild. That's what this deck is designed to do, is pull off the combo multiple times if possible. But it just seems a little ambitious.
This man ran the littlest sideboard I've ever seen. 4 TN, 4 No Escape, 4 D Magic, 3 Supreme Cap, Time Disruptor. He said, I'm done. I don't need anything else. I'm good.
It makes sense when you're... Go ahead.
So something to look at, like a big reason why this deck did well, because like you said, it gets wrecked by denial. There was a noticeable lack of denial in this event.
I thought Frieza Prison was one of the top decks.
I don't know the actual percentages. I wasn't sure. I just knew the top two decks.
So, okay, maybe not in the event as a whole, but like in Top Cut, there's a noticeable like of these decks.
Yeah,
because like in Top Cut we have what, a single Yamcha, no Frieza, no Pan.
There's Frieza.
He might have just like dodged a lot of Frieza decks throughout the Swiss rounds. I mean, that's possible. He's a linear combo deck that's just trying to do the same thing every game for the most part, and has the ability to grind out with Janemba plus Android 13. Android 13 having the hand destruction combined with 1-star ball, and I don't know, it seems like it's a sweet deck. Definitely powerful, and if you catch people, well, you get what you have here is a top 16.
You get what you have here, which is you gave them the long arm of the Majin Buu.
There you go.
There's what, one red leader in top 16?
I mean, yeah.
There's two technically.
What was the second one?
Yamcha and Frieza.
Wait, there was a Frieza? I must have missed it.
Yeah, that's what I just said. But no, this deck is good. Again, like we said, it gets shut on by Denial of Hope. But it also doesn't, because you still leave out, like you were saying, Marcus, in that last thing, you still leave out Arcane Absorption, and that's a big boy.
Yep. Our next deck, though, is very similar to the Yamcha deck, in that it's a red-green Arrival Scramble mid-range style deck playing counterplays. This is very similar to a list that I imagine Rory Rhodes was testing, one of our teammates. He had been talking about the legendary Super Saiyan Goku leader as a way to fuel your yard, turn on your Kaioken, and and just draw a bunch of cards, because it's a burst 3 and you discard, or burst 2, excuse me. I mean, it seems sweet overall. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the deck. It's leveraging the power of Vegeta the Cruel and Mach Speed, the rival, and it has the Killin' Krillin package, which can be super powerful sometimes.
And fun.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think of this deck, Shane?
Hold on, I'm taking a look at it.
Sure. The weirdest thing I think is 3 feet Kamehameha, just to catch people off guard on your flip side. Because it gains double strike when you have Sparking 5.
I mean, that's probably one of his main ways of killing people. Well, no, because it costs 1, so he's probably doing that before he scrambles.
Yeah. He probably wants to set up the scramble play in the turns prior using Feet Kamehameha, and otherwise he probably charges it.
It's probably just a really easy way to push damage in the early game, like to set up the scramble.
Yeah, I mean, on the front side it's a 15k crit. On the back side it's 35 crit double for 1 card.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. Again, like we were talking about, it's one of those slow your opponent down and win the game by playing big things like Scramble. Really cool deck, though. I mean, I love seeing decks like this.
The Krillin doesn't have barrier, does it?
I mean, if it's not warped, then it doesn't matter, because you'll get the Goku skill, I believe.
No, it doesn't have barrier.
It does not.
There's another trend, like, if you notice through this Top Cut, is there's a lot of decks that, like, not necessarily are weak to removal, but would be, like, a little stumbled by removal.
Right.
And there just doesn't seem to be a lot of removal.
Yeah, like if there was like one deck that would have had a bunch of threats that just have barrier, like some of these red-green decks would have probably stumbled against them. One thing I like is like the Final Showdown engine kind of feels like the Arrival engine in that you put a good threat into play on the opponent's turn, and then you could attack with it and try to all-in to scramble somebody, with Goku being a 25,000 double striker.
Yep.
Seems pretty sweet. Nice list and good job, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Our last top 16 list is the Red Frieza Prison deck. It's almost identical to Namvo's list. I think there's a few cards different, but I mean it's pretty straightforward. It's got Chain Attack Babidi into your Kaiokens or your Umbral Blade Deborahs as your win conditions, and then it's got a bunch of negates and Denial of Hopes.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite decks to play. It's a lot of fun tilting your opponent. But
I think
this deck is good.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about it. It's just your generic Red Frieza Prison.
Yep. This list looks like it probably has a little bit of a harder time maintaining some card advantage because it's got 11 negates and then 4 counterplays.
So you would think that, but honestly, this deck, every time I play it, my hand size is just huge.
Well, your list also plays new model Scouter, which is card advantage.
That's true.
And this list noticeably doesn't have that. But I mean, it searches a card every turn on the front side. You get cards from your life. It's kind of like how Janemba is, where Janemba just gets a card every turn. And then
he's
tries
a draw two later.
Right. So that helps on the Awakening turn. But yeah, I mean, it's a powerful deck. It just, it has like good matchups and bad matchups noticeably.
Yeah, I like that he has the Frieza cards on the sideboard, like the big Frieza prison bombs. That's probably about the only neat thing I see about it. Like, not that the rest of the deck's not neat, but like, it's what we already.
Yep.
One weird thing about this list is the final showdown Friezas in the sideboard. Is I wonder if he had those in there as a not necessarily a diversified threat in certain matchups, but as a threat that also can negate skills on certain things that you can't negate that have deflect. And so maybe he wants that against things like Shenron Gogeta or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something there. But this deck's probably a little too slow to beat the Shenron ramp deck that Anthony played.
Yeah, probably.
But that's the last of our top 16 decks.
So speaking of the Shenron ramp deck that Anthony Hernandez played,
that is our next list here. It's a very innovative take on a established archetype in that it completely forgoes using the Union Fusion effect of Gogeta to play it on turn 5. This deck consistently on turn 4 has 7 energy if it does what it's designed to do.
Yeah, I played into this deck over the weekend, Marcus.
Yeah, we played 3 games with it.
Woo! Did my butthole hurt after those 3 games?
Yeah,
I was a little tilted.
The first game went exactly how it went on stream, where it was Gogeta into Kaioken into Fu, and nothing you could really do about that. The second game we played was a little bit closer, and the third game I didn't see a Gogeta till the end of the game, and it still ended up with the victory going to the Shenron deck.
Yep.
So this deck alone is going to cause the format to shift into being more aggressive.
Right, and I can agree with that, because people have to respect the fact that this is the best late-game deck in the game.
Agreed.
I don't
Good
think
job, Anthony.
And this deck is also going to solidify the fact that you're going to see a whole bunch of Toa.
Yeah, I don't think that matchup is particularly bad, but it's not good either, because, if you look at this list, it doesn't... it generates card advantage from the leader, and then from maybe Dragon Radar, and if it can put Gogeta 5s into play, but otherwise it doesn't, it's just a combo deck,
Yeah.
So Toa does hurt the hand. Yeah, I like this deck a lot too. Great job, Anthony, on the second place. And
So when are we going to ban Kaioken?
That's going to be in 2 formats. But they can't ban it until they ban Gogeta 7.
That's a lie. The card's way better than Gogeta 7.
Regardless, we'll move on to the victor of the tournament, playing Skillless, and he was playing the only, I guess you could say spicy list out of all the Skillless lists in Top Cut. We've seen...
Our guest from the other week?
Yeah, actually it was about a month ago now. But this was playing the Skillless engine. We've seen this engine do well before at previous events. He had a little bit more card advantage in his list, from what I can see, by playing the time regulators plus the Supreme Kais in the main deck, but he didn't have a Toki Toki engine in the main deck, which a lot of the other, that's kind of what you have to cut to play the Skillless engine in the main deck. But notably, what he did differently was only had 3 1-drop Gokus, 3 Trunkses, 3 Dimension Sports, and 3 4-star balls. So he cut back on those cards to kind of fill out the other good black cards, I would assume. Otherwise, I don't see anything particularly amazing. I mean, he only played 2 Power Bursts in the main deck, which is kind of ballsy, but he did have the other 2 in the sideboard, at least.
Yeah, that just shows he was expecting a very, mid-range, late-game format.
And it paid off.
I like the deck a lot.
Yeah, I think he did a great job. Congrats to Jordan again.
Good job, Jordan. Woo!
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't see anything particularly special about the list other than some number tweaks, but that was our top 16 from Philly.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
what I like about this event is like this event's kind of showing how good some of the content creators are that we have in this game. Even though a lot of people like to complain about Patreon prices, because almost nothing in this top 16 is like surprising. Like it's a little spicy, but it's not surprising because people like Zap and Nestfetter and all them have like put these decks into the public eye at some point in like the recent past.
If that wasn't such a good daggone deck builder, we wouldn't have these issues. There'd be more spice. Looking at you, Daddy Zap.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest takeaway from this, I think, people are now understanding that Toa is probably considered best deck in format as of right now, and it's a deck to beat. So we're going to see decks that are particularly good against Toa make a resurgence in Orlando, in my opinion, and we're going to see decks that are good against red-green Arrival, because while there were several different leaders in the top cut, there was a lot of red-green decks. And I think there's a big thing to take away from that is that, like Shane, or was it? Yeah, I think Shane or Danny said it earlier. There's just not enough barrier-efficient threats in the format.
Yeah. So, seeing what we see now, knowing kind of how the format, does this change what you guys think you might be taking into Orlando? I know me and Shane are kind of just taking whatever we want to the top of Marcus. I know you're going for that Nats invite, man. Are you looking at anything in particular that you want? Does this change your mind on anything? I know it makes you start to look at the ramp deck, but
when it comes to the decks that we've seen do well and how it'll affect Orlando, it did kind of take me away from the fact that I was considering Janemba. I think Janemba's still a great option if I want to top, but I think I could do the same thing with Toa, but Toa will give me a better chance to win the event.
Okay. So then you think you'll take Toa?
At this point, that's what I'm considering, yes. Though, I do need a few regulators, if anybody can hook me up.
Bro, we get a regulator for signing up.
Yeah, you know.
What's your point?
You know that 3 of us are going to have a regulator.
There's literally like 13 of us in our hotel.
What's your point?
That's 13 regulators.
Oh yeah, I guess almost all of us are in the invitational, huh?
And then I think RJ has some.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably what I'm taking. What about you, Shane?
So, while I'm still, like, leaning towards Janemba, because I really like the mono blue Janemba deck I've been working on, like, with help from, like, Danny, Zap, and Chris, it does make me look a little bit more at the red-green stuff, because I'm really kind of a fan of, like, the Green Goku deck and the Yamcha deck. And especially the Yamcha deck is a deck I think that will do well into the Shenron deck.
Yeah. So, after looking at this, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of ramp anyways. It's what I played at the prelims. I just like playing things. I like cheating in the game. And,
we're aware.
From Yu-Gi-Oh! What a surprise.
Like legal cheating, like Pot of Greed is cool. And the Shenron leader, I've told you guys before, I think the Shenron leader is great because it's a Pot of Greed every turn. And it just generates you so much advantage. So it makes me kind of look at this ramp deck. I can't help but think, obviously, it'll be expected from now on. So it might not be the best.
Well, if you think about it, even if it's expected, the best tools that you can use against this deck aren't viable for every strategy as a way to counter it. So that does limit some of the counterplay against it. I expect, Shane brought this up, that we'll see a resurgence of the forced ejection mass sands as sideboard options.
Heck, I might sideboard it in Janemba.
I'm still also looking at Janemba because, I think I piloted Janemba really well, and I think I can pilot it to at least another top 16 for some additional pricing. I guess the question just becomes, am I trying to win the event, or do I think I can win the event, which I would like to get another top 8 or to progress and do the next step further and get that top 4 that I don't have yet. So I think I can pilot Janemba to get there. It's just going to be a little rough. So I might want to make my day a little bit easier by being able to outplay all my opponents for the majority of the rounds in Swiss with a ramp deck. So,
I know what you mean there for sure.
What, Shane?
So I pose a question. Obviously, Toa is one of the decks. What do we think is the other big deck to beat if you want to win the event? Toa and probably the ramp deck.
Some kind of I think some kind of red green arrival is the next deck to beat.
While I don't think it's the best deck in the format, it's strong enough and has the tools to do well, and it's also relatively inexpensive outside of Kaioken. So, like, skillless, you'll find a lot of players picking it up for that reason.
So, what has a good matchup into Toa and red green?
Not much.
Janemba.
Janemba does not have a good matchup into red green, in my opinion.
I guess it just depends on some factors, like certain deck building factors.
It also there's a huge debate on like going first in that and how good their opening hand is, which I mean every deck is based on that. But if they like, you know, in Janemba, if you're playing into a deck with an SCR, like let's say Scramble, and they open up the Scramble, man, are you just like that game instantly becomes so much harder for you. It's just not even fun. You can't even get to 4 life.
I hate to admit it, but it's like as much as I'm not a fan of Godstrike, the Scramble might force me to put Godstrike back in my deck.
Yeah, there was a few of the lists that made top 16 here that either had Godstrike in their main deck or their sideboard.
Yep.
Like even decks that weren't Janemba had copies of Godstrike in their sideboard.
Yeah, it's definitely good. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. Like that's actually a pretty good counter option for the Scramble all-in plan, because you know they're going to all-in to try to scramble you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've done that, all you have to do is be able to like negate the Scramble attack or whatever else they have, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So is there not a deck though that we think has a good matchup in Toa and red green?
Man, both not post.
The Shenron Ramp deck doesn't have a bad matchup versus Toa per se, and it's got it. I mean, it looks like it should have a good matchup against the red green arrival decks.
Is the Veggie deck good into both of them?
No, Veggies get pooped on pretty hard by the red green arrival decks.
I think the red green arrival does well into would do well into Ramp, because Ramp doesn't look like it can survive a go wide strategy. Just doesn't have the combo power that
something to consider though is all these red green arrival decks that did well weren't aggro decks. They were mid-range / control decks.
Yeah,
they're not like the list that I was playing at the preliminary, which are just trying to kill you as fast as possible or be able to shift gears and just play counter plays.
Yeah, that's true.
But that doesn't mean we won't see it. Like Shane said, this Ramp deck promotes a more aggressive format because you don't want to face the inevitability of Gogeta 7 plus Kaioken plus Fu.
Yeah. That's very true.
While I guess I don't have an answer for this, I feel like whoever finds a deck that does well against both of those decks has a chance at winning the event.
So yeah, anybody in the comments, you know, let us know what you think. What do you think has the best matchup against both Toa and the red-green arrival decks? And doesn't just fold to the Shenron Ramp deck either. If you can find that, you might be the next regional winner.
Yep, I'm very much so agree.
There's a deck that has good matchups into at least 2 of those 3, but I'm not sure what it is. I haven't tested.
Yeah, I mean, the format's pretty wide open, so it makes it hard to find that niche deck that'll fill all of the prerequisites that you're looking for. I mean, we just got to get on a grind, right?
Yep, very much so. And I'm sure whoever does that, Zap Daddy, will probably figure out what's...
Look, we don't need any ASMR on these podcasts. Come on, man. Is there anything else we need to talk about on this?
So teams.
Sure.
Because teams is relatively... I don't say it's a big deal, but like, let's come on. People like flexing in teams.
Oh yeah, I mean, teams is a different kind of format, so it has its own relativity in that, like, what you find that's good in teams is obviously going to sometimes different from what's good in singles, and it's a skill to be able to formulate a good team.
So I'm 100% on Veggies. What do y'all think, y'all?
No idea. I'm going to be honest with you. It's something I'm going to look at in the next week.
Like, I'm all over that Sandy Cater list that he posted, the Shenron Veggie deck. The deck looks fun.
I'm thinking Veggies is one good team. AOD is another good team if they don't both use Super Dragon Ball.
Nah, Veggies does not.
Okay. I think those two are super good decks for teams. The third deck could always be Janemba. Janemba's just always generically good. And then it can get all of the hate cards.
Hey, look, we found our team.
But otherwise, I think like the Shenron ramp deck would be very good in teams because you can just dodge the bad matchup completely. Toa is probably strong in teams because it's already a strong deck, and the only thing it takes is all of the hate cards that you can normally like main deck in the Toa deck. Other decks wouldn't be able to sideboard. Do we know if teams for Orlando is going to be best of one
it's
or best
of
three?
One.
Okay, so being best of one makes things a little bit more awkward if you have Toa on your team. But I think if you're playing teams, you should just be picking the 3 most broken strategies when unhindered and play those 3 decks.
Yeah.
So, Shenron Veggies, Agents of Destruction, and then you can kind of just fill in the third with probably Toa or Janemba. Probably Toa.
I agree.
Yep.
So, Danny, you got that Boo Boy?
The AOD?
Yeah, you got that Boo Boy.
No, dude, I don't have that card.
I'm
Well,
pretty
get the
sure
Boo Boy.
RJ has one.
Well, borrow the Boo Boy from RJ.
Maybe.
Because
We'll
you're
see.
playing Agents.
I'm not playing Agents, but
You're playing Agents.
this has
Look,
been fun.
it's too early to decide Orlando decks, Shane. 4 teams.
Now it's perfect.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a pretty good episode. We talked about a lot. We've been going for about 50 minutes. We went over all the relevant decks.
Wait.
What do we forget?
I just had to point this out. If you look at the card objection,
Yeah.
he kind of looks like a fucking penguin.
Don't be rude to Jaco.
Sorry, he looks like a penguin.
Jaco is my favorite Power Ranger ripoff.
And it's Jocko, you uncultured swine. Get the penguin's name right.
Something I would like to point out is look how much of a difference Vegeta the Cruel made for all of these red-green decks to get top cut.
Well, guys, it's been a wonderful time. We will see you again next week. And remember, the next time you're at your locals, to stay elite.